I'm absolutely delighted to introduce Chris Hope to you all, and you'll be familiar with Christopher Hope, my former colleague at The Telegraph, now our incoming GB News political editor, also known as Chopper, if I may call you that.
That's OK, Camilla.
Why not? Maintain that nickname while you're here. You're going to get started this week. It's your first week at GB News.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you.
To the Madhouse.
Good to be here. Hello, viewers.
Lovely to see you. Right, let's whip through some of these boat stories then, Chris, because what a week it's been for the government. Stop the boats week. I mean, stop the negative headlines would be a better way of launching this campaign. It's been an absolute disaster, hasn't it?
Yes, they've tried to run before they can walk, I think. I mean, let's start with the really sad news overnight of the drownings in the Channel.
Yes, it's horrific.
The Mail Sunday is saying here that they maybe was a French vessel watching this boat, and what are the French doing? And that, but there was a human tragedy at the heart of these stories.
But there's always a human tragedy, isn't there? At the heart of this whole thing, you know, smugglers are making an absolute fortune on the backs of people being sent across the Channel in barely inflatable dinghies. Got all of this government rhetoric, and yet still we're months in, years into a Tory government that hasn't been able to get a grip of this issue.
At all. I think what's interesting in the Sunday Telegraph front page there about these barges, the Bibby Stockham, of course, the mistake they made there was going too early on it. They should have flushed the water out, make sure it's all clean and there's no risk of Legionnaires. But I think this idea that they want to get more barges, the Telegraph here reporting several could be in place in smaller ports around the country. That's really interesting, I think, because this is, for me, going to the next 12 to 18 months, it's all about what would Labour do if they were in power. If the Tories can establish maybe 3 or 4 or 5 barges around the country, they'll become a focus for the next election. What would Labour do? Would Keir Starmer remove those barges and put them back in hotels?
But didn't
and then it's an attack line for the Tories.
Stephen Kinnock, who's the Labour spokesman on these issues, said last week that he thought that they would keep the barges because if they were in government, they would need to keep the existing infrastructure.
That's interesting.
The lack of solution from Labour, he's done this op-ed in the Mirror. It's basically saying, we need to cooperate more with the French and we need to stop the smuggling gangs and we need to disincentivise people from coming here. I'm thinking, well, isn't that what the government's proposing and you're opposing it?
Well, they're so similar, the two parties, that I think differentiation is the theme of the next 12 months. At the moment, we're putting up migrants who come here illegally in hotels. How does that look in France? Go to Britain and live in a hotel. That's how it appears.
How does it look like to the electorate here? They hate
quite
it.
Right, and we're paying for it. And you can't even go on a holiday in Britain because the hotel might be full already. That's a problem.
We talk about whether there's a difference. Maybe there's only a fag paper between Sunak and Starmer because there's some interesting analysis in the Mail on Sunday. I quite like how they've done this polling because normally polling is quite boring. And what kind of questions have they asked the people that they've surveyed here? Yeah,
it says Sunak's a long way behind, 17 points behind Starmer. They say here that voters would rather spend a long car journey or a night out with Starmer, not Sunak. Now, I've been in the car a lot.
Can I just say, slight Hobson's choice that. Would you like to have a car journey or indeed a long night out with either of them? I mean, my goodness me.
Government's 30% think the government's handling the economy very badly. That's bad for Sunak. They are saying things here that we know. They're saying here that Sunak will be a good boss of a company. But
he'd be better with your money.
And I think he's got to learn politics on the job.
It's quite an interesting Boris question in there. It asks Tory voters particularly whether they'd be more likely to vote for the Tories if Boris was still in power. And the people, I think it's 29% said they'd vote for Sunak, and then it goes up to 31% for Boris.
Yes.
So the blonde still looms in the background.
And he knows it.
Doesn't he just? I know, it's
And also on net zero, it's very popular. More than half like it, but 3/4 won't install a heat pump, which says all about net zero.
This is the problem, right? People are in support of this. I mean, not least because the British are very good at recycling and all the rest of it, but they don't want to paying thousands of pounds for new cars and heat pumps. That's right. Let's go on now to Steve Barclay, the Health Secretary, who's been in a number of the papers. He's done an interview. I just thought it was worth pointing out this really good piece in the Telegraph, Chris. 3 months of surgery in 5 days. Basically, this has been pioneered by Guys and Thomases. Clearly, they've got a massive breast cancer backlog. And a consultant there, Mr. Ahmed, I believe he's called, Imran Ahmed, has basically said that you should condense all of these operations into a few days and get them done. This is a positive story. Why can't this be rolled out?
It's rethinking how you deal with waiting lists. There's a guy called Professor Tim Briggs who has an idea called Get It Right First Time in NHS. The point is all these hospitals are doing the same thing all the time. Learn the best practice and do it. And that idea of using technology, using clever ways of working, just literally blitz deleting one part of the waiting list and moving to the next part sounds very intelligent.
Basically, they had concurrent operating theatres so that they didn't need to wait for people to go in. Somebody's having the anaesthetic, somebody's being operated on, switch. I mean, to clear a 3-month backlog in 5 days, God.
The problem for me with the NHS is politics is always involved. It should be taken out. Ideally, for the patients, they're the most important people, it should be removed from politics, and it isn't. That's what we see here in the Mail. Steve Barclay talking about how to let Labour NHS patients in Wales use the English waiting list.
And then he's having a go at Labour running the NHS in Wales and saying the waiting lists are even
Theresa May was Prime
Minister. Let's have a quick chat about whether there are too many rats in Parliament, Chris.
Well, apparently there are, although I've never seen any, not any actual rodents. I've seen many MPs who are rats, of course, haven't we, Camilla? But there were lots of mice, but apparently, according here, they can't. It's an unsuitable environment for a moggy, according to the Battersea dog.
Well, I mean, they haven't met my cat, Baroness Lionel of Blair, who is basically a serial killer.
Yes.
Something is killed almost on a daily basis.
Yes.
I saw Larry a couple of weeks ago. I happened to go into number 10.
Yes.
Larry is just lying about on the rug. Doing
overfed cat.
Not mousing anything.
I found if I was working late at the Telegraph in room 12 or room 10, if I didn't move, the mouse would appear. So I'd be making flapping noises.
When you say room 10, you're talking about where all the journalists hang out in the Houses of Parliament. There are mice just flying around.
Yeah.
But isn't it also because journalists are a bit filthy and they leave out sandwiches
we do. We just dribble.
Paperwork. Yeah, horrible. Now, slight segue, just to another story that pricked my interest. There's this image of Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. Tell me about it, Chris, because I'm intrigued by this image. Showing this thing on her wrist that seems to be what?
Yes. Well, apparently it is a biosignal processing disc.
Right.
On the veins on the inside of her left hand, which she was showing. A camera was nearby. The camera caught it.
What I find interesting about this image is, I don't know if we can zoom in on it, but isn't it interesting how one of her sleeves is turned down to reveal this mental health disc and the other sleeve isn't?
That's right.
Could she have known she was being photographed?
No, she may not have known. We think it's taken by someone called Backgrid, which could be a paparazzi.
Very famous paparazzi agency in LA,
costs, £235 to nearly £3,000 a year.
And it tells you your mood and it helps you to de-stress.
And some of us can't afford gym membership.
Well, as you're starting at GB News, maybe you should invest in one of these discs.
Yes,
just to make sure you're fine as you make this foray into broadcasting.
Yes.
Chris, we wish you all the very best. Looking forward to seeing you on air this week.
That's right, yes.
OK,
Thank you, Camilla.
good luck with everything.
Good to be here.
Christopher Hope, our new political editor, ladies and gentlemen.